Continuing on the topic of working in details in Revit, in the previous two movies we saw creating a callout view, and then we saw adding detail components on top of the callout view to begin embellishing design intent. In this movie we're going to look at a few more tools that we have to embellish the detail, specifically filled and masking regions. Before we do that, I just want to point out a couple of the changes that you might see on screen here compared to the previous file. This file is called Filled and Masking Regions, and I have added to it two detail components, an angle running this way and a channel item running this way. Both of these items are available in the out-of-the-box detail library, the same location where we found the stair tread. So you can feel free to go ahead and import these yourselves and add them in. All I did was place them in the model where I wanted them to go. And I want to show you a nice benefit of having this as a grouped array is when I select the array item, I can choose Edit Group. And I've positioned this angle where I want it to be, but I actually need it underneath each stair. So rather than creating a separate array and manually copying it again, all I need to do is open up the first array group, which is already spaced properly and in the correct location, click the Add button, click on the item I want to add to the array, and then finish the group. And just like that, we'll have that support angle now added to all the other treads as well. But you can see that the tread design that we're using here is a little different than the underlying stair model. And rather than go in and edit the model and try and make it match and all that, what we can simply do is draw a two-dimensional version of the stringer here to cover up the underlying model geometry that we're not interested in seeing. And to do that, we go to Annotate, and we go to Region, and we're going to choose a masking region. Now, masking region is just that. It's a region that masks out the underlying geometry underneath. And in fact, we've already seen an example with this break line that we used over here. That break line has a built-in masking region. I could just draw my lines, and you see Revit does a pretty good job of snapping directly to the underlying geometry. Or I could actually use this to save myself a little bit of effort. I'm going to choose Pick Lines, and I'll pick this line and this one. I can even pick the vertical if I like so, but it's not quite in the right place. And then this final one, I'm just going to draw outside the crop somewhere. So let's clean this up. I'll do Trim and Trim. And then for this guy, I can just move it to where it needs to go. And you'll see how it'll actually snap to that underlying 2D component that I placed there. So presumably I put that component in the correct location, and therefore I can use that to actually snap to. I could even lock it so that if I realize the channel needs to move around a little bit, it will actually automatically move the edge of the masking region with it. And that can be a little handy thing to do. The only caution I would give you about locking elements when you're working in a detail, it might be tempted to, lock the treads to the underlying treads and so on. You might be later working in a floor plan view and you make a modification, and then Revit will send up an error message telling you that it can't satisfy the constraints anymore and that it's got to remove the constraints or some other cryptic sounding message. And you might not be sure what it's talking about. It could be something as simple as, I locked this line to the underlying stair, but now because of the new configuration of the stair, that lock is no longer valid, and it's telling me it can't do that. Well, that's a pretty innocuous thing, and I could easily just say, okay, unconstrain it, and I'll come back and fix the detail. But if you're not sure what it's trying to tell you, it can be a little bit scary to get a message like that. So, just use some caution when you're applying constraints and locks. Just because you see a lock doesn't mean you have to click it, right? Try and be judicious about it and click them when you get the most bang for your buck. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this masking region. And so there you go. It's masking all right, but it seems to be masking just a little bit too much, right? Well, no worries here. We have our Arrange buttons on the Modify tab, and we can easily shuffle these things around. All we have to actually do here is click Send to Back, because it turns out that any regions or any 2D components, so this includes both our 2D detail component families and our masking and filled regions, all of those sit on top of the model. So even if you send it all the way to back,